For over 30 years, Castlevania has stood alongside the Metroid game series as an archetype for a specific style of video game colloquially known as the Metroidvania, in which players guide a character through a large two-dimensional game world full of monsters, obstacles, and lots of secret areas. While both series are iconic for pioneering this predecessor to open-world exploration, Castlevania games are also noteworthy for their interconnected plot lines, chronicling the whip-wielding Belmonts and their generations-long quest to defeat the Lord of Vampires himself, Dracula. After decades of success in the video game world, Castlevania is breaking new ground and entering the world of TV. Hi, I'm Jacob with Cartoon Hangover, and today we're talking 7 facts about the animated Castlevania series, bringing the adventures of Trevor Belmont to the small screen for the first time ever this year. Let's get this adventure started. It's been in development since 2005. An animated adaptation of the Castlevania video game series has been in the works since 2005 when Frederator Studios, who you may have heard of, first acquired the rights to adapt Castlevania. It was initially conceptualized as a direct-to-DVD film, and in 2007, Warren Ellis, who's primarily known for his work as a graphic novelist on series like Transmetropolitan and Astonishing X-Men, was brought on board as a writer. 1 year later, his film script was in talks to be developed into a series. However, it wasn't until 2015 that the show's producers were approached by Netflix to make the series conceptualized by Ellis a reality. His 2007 film script is the basis for the story arc of the first season's 4 episodes, and a planned second season will expand on the story and characters established in this initial installment. One possible reason for the renewed interest in the series that led to it finally being made is that 10 years ago, dark adult-oriented fantasy simply didn't exist in the world of TV. Now we have Game of Thrones, and Ellis' story, written long before Khaleesi became a popular baby name, may have some renewed relevance. Maybe thanks to the series we can start to see some babies named Trevor, because come on people, Khaleesi isn't even a name, it's a title! Her name is Daenerys! While Ellis has worked as a writer for TV and video games in the past, as well as on a number of unproduced scripts, Castlevania is his first original screenplay to see the light of day. The story is taken from Castlevania III. The show's plot and characters are primarily taken from the third entry in the Castlevania video game series, Castlevania III: Dracula's Curse. Traditionally, Castlevania games tell the story of a member of the vampire-hunting Belmont clan on a quest to defeat the continually resurrected Count Dracula. Castlevania III follows the second oldest member of the Belmont clan, Trevor, who fights alongside Alucard, the half-vampire son of Dracula, beloved by fans of the game, to defeat Dracula himself from terrorizing medieval Europe. While the show can be appreciated by viewers with no prior knowledge of the video game series, lots of attention was put into preserving elements from Castlevania III, which was made playable to members of the series staff on an old NES system purchased on eBay and set up in the Powerhouse Animation Studios offices. For example, series director and character designer Sam Dietz made sure that the color palettes of the show's 3 main characters matched their original NES sprites. His rationale was that those who hadn't played the game since their childhood would mostly remember the colors of its characters and little else. Additionally, a number of Easter eggs reference other games from the long-running series. The Belmont family's crest, for example, is based on the family crest from a lesser-known installment, Castlevania Lords of Shadow, and an attack used by Alucard in one episode was designed to look like a weapon attack from the series' standout Symphony of the Night. Eagle-eyed viewers will even notice visual Easter eggs in some of the backgrounds and set pieces. Now, if you're a die-hard fan of the video games, you're probably wondering, was Wall Chicken hidden in the show? While Sam Dietz has made it clear that they've been trying to fit it in, the long-standing Castlevania game staple unfortunately did not make it into the first season. Producer Adi Shankar is a veteran of dark fantasy adaptations. Adi Shankar is serving as producer on the series, whose past works include gritty comic book and TV adaptations, some of which are notably unauthorized by the original work's creators, but they nonetheless feature A-list talent. Most popular of these bootleg works is his 2015 short film Power Rangers, which stars Dawson's Creek's James Vanderbeek and tells the story of a dark, exaggerated future where the Power Rangers have been defeated and are gradually dying out. It was well received by critics and even praised by cast members of the original Power Rangers. Shankar has described Power Rangers, or Power/Rangers, as a love letter to the TV series he grew up with as a kid, and cited passion for the project as his primary motivation over monetary success. While Castlevania is Shankar's first video game adaptation, the team behind the series is taking a similar approach, focusing focusing on making the show first and foremost a high-quality work of art. Director Sam Dietz has also described how video game adaptations seem to present their own unique set of challenges. Simply put, more often than not, video game adaptations aren't very successful. While he has cited 2012's Japanese film adaptation of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney as one of the better video game adaptation success stories, he has found it still fails to feel relevant when placed up against the experience of the original games. Fortunately, rather than feel discouraged, the team behind Castlevania seems to have taken this somewhat bleak reality of video game adaptations as a challenge. Shankar said, "I personally guarantee that it will end the streak and be the Western world's first good video game adaptation." Though it's an American production, anime is a big influence on both its visual style and storytelling. As you may or may not know, production company Frederator Studios is known for series like Adventure Time and The Fairly OddParents, while series co-producers Powerhouse Animation have worked previously on video games like Epic Mickey and The Banner Saga. However, while production is being handled exclusively by American studios, with in-betweens and animation services done by MUA Film, in both look, just watch a few seconds of the trailer, and storytelling, the Castlevania series is hugely influenced by Japanese animation. In fact, Shankar has described the series as an attempt to bring hard-hitting anime to America. Some of Shankar's hard-hitting anime influences include Akira, Ghost in the Shell, and Ninja Scroll, as well as Young Justice, which, if you're unfamiliar, is an American cartoon that caught on with a more adult audience in the same way he intends Castlevania to catch on with older viewers. Sam Dietz has named his favorite dark fantasy series to be Berserk, the long-running anime and manga series, which he has also cited as a reference point in developing the Castlevania series. Given that pre-Game of Thrones dark fantasy was in short supply in the West, Castlevania inevitably takes inspiration for some of its dark fantasy elements from this and other Japanese series like Vagabond and Blade of the Immortal. Anime film auteur Satoshi Kon is another influence on the show, whose work Dietz has described as taking a similar approach to Castlevania, being influenced by Western works in their direction and shot progression with Eastern-style animation. Outside of anime, Hammer horror films, which refer to the films produced by Hammer Film Productions through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, were also a major influence on the show's style. Warren Ellis has cited these films as his primary point of reference in developing the show's horror elements, being that these were his main exposure to classic movie monsters, Dracula included, growing up in England during the decades they were being released. It's gonna be really violent. One common thread that unites the Japanese anime series and horror films that have influenced the Castlevania series is that they're all dark and violent, and that's no coincidence. Castlevania is going to be plenty dark and violent itself. Sam Dietz has said that he finds shows sometimes don't have stakes without violence, and right off the bat, much of the emotional stakes of the show will develop directly out of death and destruction. In fact, episode 1 deals with things like genocide, setting a heavy precedent for the rest of the series. The world of the show actually became darker and grimmer the longer it was in development. At one point, the anime Cowboy Bebop was going to inform the show's style and how it balances serious stories with more lighthearted comedic moments. An early pitch for the show described taking the characters from Cowboy Bebop and placing them into the world of Berserk. However, the series creators found earlier versions of the show to be too comedic and intensified their focus on its darker elements. Rather than relying solely on blood and gore, which the series will still have plenty of, there will more often than not be emotional stakes behind the violence. Of course, given Shankar's past work on Power Rangers and the 2012 film Dread, it's not unreasonable to expect some shock value nonetheless. Its soundtrack is composed by Trevor Morris. The series will feature a soundtrack by the Emmy Award-winning Trevor Morris, whose past credits include Dragon Age Inquisition, The Tudors, Immortals, and the 2013 TV show Dracula, hitting all of the relevant points of reference: video games, fantasy, vampires, and the medieval period. The soundtrack will be available on Lakeshore Records, which has released the scores for some similarly dark TV series like Mr. Robot, Legion, and more. In deciding on the direction of the soundtrack, Shankar wanted to avoid the sentimental string-heavy sounds traditionally found in fantasy genre films and create something more akin to the heavy metal-esque soundtracks of the original Castlevania games. Plus, the original soundtrack is iconic enough to be performed symphonically as part of the video game's live series of large-scale video game concerts, so there's some pretty strong source material to use as a jumping-off point. The main title theme, released in advance of the show, is orchestral with a dark and manic cadence befitting of a show about castles and vampires. Its voice cast includes veteran British actors. The cast of voice actors assembled for Castlevania includes a number of notable British names, and this is no coincidence. Not only does the series take place in Europe, which in American media is pretty much just represented by British accented characters,
Are you not entertained?
but Warren Ellis, who is British, made it a point of pride for the show to feature a largely British cast. Starring as Trevor Belmont is Richard Armitage, who played Dwarf Warrior Thorin in the Hobbit movies. Playing Dracula is Graham McTavish, who also appeared in the Hobbit films as the axe-wielding Dwalin, and more recently in the Preacher TV series as the Saint of Killers. Rounding out the central cast of characters is James Callis as Alucard, who is known for playing Dr. Gaius Baltar in Battlestar Galactica. The only American actor to appear in the show's central voice cast is Alejandra Reynoso, providing the voice of Sypha, another character from the game series and a prominent player in Castlevania III. With its mission to turn the tide of video game adaptations as a whole, Castlevania has big shoes to fill, so it's a good thing its staff of writers, actors, producers, and more have all dedicated themselves to creating something equal parts groundbreaking and faithful to the source material. The first season of Castlevania is now available for streaming on Netflix, so see how they did for yourself. Have you finished binging the show? Is there anything from the video games you wish was included outside of Wall Chicken? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to ring that little bell icon to become part of our notification squad. Make sure to check out our other videos and subscribe to the channel. And thank you for sharing your cartoon hangover with us.